Good morning and welcome to Compass. We continue to journey through some challenging days as we battle COVID-19, don't we? It's March break in April. Marpril? I don't even know what you call it. I'm so glad that there are still some certainties in these uncertain days. Most importantly, God's love for us and his faithful provision remain as certain as ever. He's our rock in troubled times. And you could also be certain that Sunday after Sunday, we will continue to gather together here as a church online at Compass. When I come home from the end of another topsy-turvy week, I'm so grateful to be able to count on meeting with you here online each and every Sunday. Speaking of changing times, in response to the emergency province-wide stay-at-home order issued this week, all of our Sunday services will continue here online at 10, but there will be no in-person services or midweek ministries at Compass while the order is in place. If you'd like any updates regarding our ministries at Compass, you can always find them on our website. Something that also never changes is the importance of community in our walk of faith. And community is such a huge value for us here at Compass. We need each other more than ever. If you aren't currently involved in group life at Compass, don't let social distancing be a hurdle. We've created something called virtual groups, where you can connect with some amazing people online to grow spiritually and walk together in faith. In just a few weeks, we're going to be starting a new teaching series, and that is a great time to engage in group life. If you're interested in joining a virtual group, you can do that today, right now, on our website. Go do it. I have a save the date for you as well. Every April, we gather at our Orangeville site for our annual general meeting. Well, due to restrictions of COVID-19, our Board of Elders have decided to once again host our annual general meeting digitally through the Zoom platform on Sunday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Hey, we'd love to have you join us for that meeting. For more information or to register to receive the Zoom link, please contact our office by this coming Friday, April 16th. Well, we have such an exciting and important morning ahead of us. We really do. We are thrilled to have guest speaker Brett Ullman join us today. Enjoy the service. I'll see you after.
Be still and know that the Lord is in control. Be still, my soul. Stand and watch as giants fall. I won't be afraid, for you are here. You silence all my fear. I won't be afraid. You don't let go. Be still, my heart, and know I won't be afraid. Be still and trust what the Lord has said is done. Find rest, don't strive. Watch his faith and grace align. I won't be afraid, for you are here. You silence all my fear. I won't be afraid. You don't let go. Be still, my heart, and know I won't be afraid. will follow me, will follow me. Surely love and mercy, your peace and kindness will follow me, will follow me. Surely love and mercy, your peace and kindness will follow me, will follow me. Surely love and mercy, your peace and kindness will follow me, will follow me. Your love surrounds me, your love surrounds me. Your love surrounds me, your love surrounds me.
Oh, the joy, the joy, the joy of those who delight in the law of the Lord. Oh, the joy, the joy, the joy of those who meditate day and night in the law of the Lord. Let all my delight be only in your sweet and bright instruction. Oh, the joy, the joy, the joy of those who delight in the law of the Lord. Oh, the joy, the joy, the joy of those who meditate day and night in the law of the Lord. Let all my delight be only in your sweet and bright instruction. Let all my delight be only in your sweet and bright instruction. Like trees along the river, with leaves that never wither. Like trees along the river, with leaves that never wither. Like trees along the river, with leaves that never wither. Like trees along the river, with leaves that never wither. sweet and right instruction.
We are excited to welcome Brett Ullman back to Compass this morning. Brett spoke a few years ago at one of our parent evenings and is back this morning to share from his talk on mental health. With a new emergency stay order in place and a third wave, I can't think of a better time to have Brett joining us. Brett is an international speaker on topics from parenting to mental health to media. He was a teacher at the Toronto District School Board before becoming a full-time communicator. And with his master's in evangelism and leadership, and as a graduate from the Arrow Leadership Program, compounded with his love for his family, Jesus, and the local church, we know that there will be much to apply as we live out our calling in the transformation of people, families, and communities. Brett, thank you for joining us this morning.
There's an author named Leo Tolstoy, and he says an interesting line. He says, "In the name of God, stop what you're doing, cease your work, and look around you." Today, I get a chance to do that. I hope we just take a pause from life and pandemic and other things and look at the idea of mental health. What do we do? How do we help? How do we get better? And all those things. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Brett Ullman. I really wish I was with you physically today, but with the new pandemic kind of lockdown measures, I know we can't do that. But I've always had a great time coming to your church. I've been at your church numerous times over the years. I've been a speaker full-time for 15 years. Before that, I was a teacher with the Toronto District School Board, and I travel and speak on, I always just say current issues. So today we're talking about mental health. I have a talk called Parenting, Navigating Everything, which I'll be doing through a Zoom call for you in May. And then I speak on sex, porn, dating, media, and I have a talk for men called Men Navigating Everything, looking at how do we be better fathers, husbands, and boyfriends. I live in Ajax, which is about 45 minutes east of Toronto. I'm actually going to switch to a different thing here. I want to just introduce you to my family quickly. This is my daughter, Zoe. She is in first year university at Western. She's actually been physically at Western this year, which has been an interesting journey. My son, Ben, is in grade 12. He'll be heading to Queen's next year. And my wife, Dawn, who's a nurse. I was a teacher. I left teaching. I did what's called the Arrow Leadership Program, and then I went and did a master's degree of evangelism and leadership at a school called Wheaton down in Chicago. And then I had a breakdown. I was working too hard for too long, and I began to struggle. I began to almost pass out at speaking events, and then I was at a camp called Lakeshore in Coburg, and everything just kind of collapsed. I didn't leave the cottage I was at for a week. I didn't leave my house then for 5 months, and I didn't work for 11, 12 months, at least a year almost. And there's irony in my journey in that we're now 2021, we're into April, and I still struggle with panic attacks. I still struggle with anxiety. And so this has become my journey. But this image was really important to me because it kind of was how I felt when I began my journey. Everyone around me offered me a million roads and a million directions. What worked for you or your family doesn't guarantee it will work for someone else. So someone would say, have you tried vitamin D? And then someone else would say, have you tried Jesus? Those are very different conversations. And then people, after they'd say, have you tried Jesus, would leave. And I would sit at home and wonder, like, Jesus, have I not tried you enough? And what does that mean? And somehow, if I tried you enough, would I be better? Like, can you see how destructive some of these simple lines that we give to people might be? My wife said to me about 5 months in, what would you do if you ever spoke again? And I remember saying, I don't think I will. I can't leave the house. She said, what would you do if you ever did? And I said, I'd love to have a conversation on mental health in the church. How do we have an answer? How do we have a structure that we can kind of walk through? And that's where I began this conversation. Now, what I want to do is I want to walk through this conversation first and foremost for you, whether you're a teen, a young adult, a parent, senior, whoever you're at. If you're struggling, how do you get better? And then the second one, how do we care for the people we love? So whether you're a parent or in church leadership or our friends and family. And I want to talk about an often missed conversation with mental health, which is the conversation on prevention. I'm not saying you can prevent everything, but I think we can prevent a fair amount of things today. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to do mental health versus mental illness. I want to talk about first steps. What do you do? I want to talk about faith, where it plays a role, and give you some practical applications for you to move forward. Now, This is a Sunday morning conversation. And I always say I'm a teacher, not a preacher, even though I think preaching teaches and teaching preaches, another conversation. But this is not a mental health first aid course. I do not have all day. This is a spark. I always say I love, one of my favorite books is The Power of Moments. Like, this is to be a moment. I think our faith is built in moments. I think our thoughts and mental health is built on moments. So the goal is to be a moment to move us forward in this area. Now, every book I promote today, I'll give you a link at the very end where you can find them all. But this is where I think it's good to start. Stephen says, herein lies one of the most pervasive misunderstanding regarding mental illness, that God spares this kind of pain and suffering from those with deep and abiding faith. Because what this says to someone like me is that I guess you, Brett, wouldn't have deep and abiding faith. And so this is not true. And when we believe this, we then kind of even misunderstand how people journey, meaning those of us who struggle with mental illness, like I do, we struggle with small groups, we struggle with worship, we struggle with many things. And so I just begin with, I don't agree with this. It's not this idea that we love Jesus, everything's fine. And we'll walk through that today. So mental health versus mental illness. And there's lots of terms we use inside these, but let me walk through something which might be kind of a unique thing for you. So mental health is this axis, up and down. It's defined by the World Health Organization as a state of well-being in which we realize potential, cope with normal stress, work productively and fruitfully, and make a contribution. I think of resiliency, like, you know, those cheap balls you buy and you push them in and they go pop, they pop back up. That's resiliency. So you all have mental health, just like you all have health. You all have physical health. And you could have high or low physical or mental health. Now, when you read, and it's like Global News said the other day, 72% of Canadians say that they have lower mental health. That's what this is. But someone wrote me with that stat and said, Brett, I can't believe the growth of, and they actually listed off things like bipolar and schizophrenia during the pandemic. And I'm like, you're misreading, and this is why it's important to distinguish these two things. So this is mental health. This is mental illness. This is this axis. Mental illness is a range of conditions for which there are standard criteria used to diagnose. Things like anxiety, depression, and you can see there's a few more on the right-hand side. These are diagnosed by medical doctors, right? Psychiatrists, like people who can diagnose. And you can have high or low mental illness. So I have high mental illness. But when you put these two things together, you can have high mental illness and then either high or low mental health. Think through that for a sec, because it's an important thing to realize that even if we're struggling, this is the same if you have cancer or other things. You can have unwellness, but have high or low mental health inside that. It's important when you hear something on the news to distinguish if we're talking mental illness or mental health, even though, even in the rest of this talk, if I say about my mental health, you probably understand we use these terms interchangeably. Now, this is just an interesting challenge for us, and I often say this to students even a bit more. Be careful with the language we use. If you have to do a Zoom presentation on Monday for high school, junior high, college, university, whatever, it doesn't mean that you have anxiety. It might be more nervousness. And I think we need to delineate the terms sometimes. So this is a slide we could spend all day on. Everything that's a tick are things I think that we can actually work against, like we can fight with a prevention conversation. And the only one I didn't click is predisposition, even though I think my point is some of us have a greater predisposition, but even if we have a predisposition to cancer, diabetes, or other things, we would be careful with our diets and what we do and work the best we can. But many people have traumatic events. And so I'm showing you there's a whole bunch of reasons we come into struggling with mental illness or poor mental health, which also means there's a lot of ways we come out of it. Burnout breakdown, isolation and loneliness, which has only grown through the pandemic, chronic unwellness, which would be people like me. I'm on 8 years. There's something about, let's use the word chronicity. I think that's a word, but I don't think people know what to do with people like me. And so it's an interesting thing, chronic unwellness, and what it affects too is our spouses and families and our friends around us. Substance abuse, social media. Yes, I was going to hold up my phone. I don't even know where it is, but a cell phone, like if you spend roughly 3 hours a day, they say, on social media, you're more likely to have depression. Now here, again, we have to read things right. Maybe someone who's struggling with depression is spending more time online. Like, what's the chicken? What's the egg? But I would say we need to work on less social media. The stress, poor diet, like the relentless pressure we put on kids, poor diets, lack of sleep, which is all society, it seems to be, long-term stress at work or what we're doing. Dopamine, every time my Apple Watch taps me to say the Leafs scored or the Raptors won or lost or whatever, I get a dopamine hit to my brain. And students, you are the petri dish, the test case, and we're seeing incredible growths of anxiety and depression, especially among young women. And parents, we will address overparenting in my Parenting Navigating Everything talk, but the more we overfunction, the more our kids underfunction, which means you don't prepare them for the life they need to live. When my daughter last year and my son in a number of months are away at school, they better be ready to deal with all things without you being there functioning for them. And so overparenting is a big thing. So my point is, there's a lot of things we should deal with here, a lot of things to question and look at. This was a study done at University of Alberta where they pulled 1,600, and that's actually in Edmonton, if you're wondering. They pulled 1,600 students at U of A, and look at the stats. 51% felt everything was hopeless. Like, talk about getting involved. Like, I think we need to engage students in this conversation, even though I think adults might be the same. Number two, I don't care about. When did you poll them? Was it frosh week? Was it like exam time? 62 felt lonely. 66 very sad. Over a third so depressed it's difficult to function. Overwhelming anxiety. 52 considered suicide. 7 attempted. 1. I'd put forth, like, I'm in Ajax and I attend a church called Sanctus. It's from Sanctus to Compass, and it's from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria, British Columbia. It's every denomination, every church, every workplace. This is where we sit today. And if we're going to meet people where they're at, this is where we meet people today. I mean, this is one of the ways we will meet people. For you in Orangeville, for me in Ajax and Durham region, we will meet them where they're at with this. Now, I'd put forth, we give a different set of rules for people who struggle with mental health than other health. What do I mean by that? I have a few friends who've dealt with and are dealing with prostate cancer, diabetes, and other things, and you follow certain rules. But if you have mental health, we give a different answer. Look at the first picture. The person's throwing up in a toilet. Have you tried, not having the flu? And this is what people say to people like me. They say, have you tried not having anxiety? Like, I could think my way out of this. Nobody wants this. None of you watching wishes you had this. And if we could think our way out, we would have. No one would say to someone bleeding, it's like you're not even trying. And the person on the right, I don't think it's healthy you have to take medication every day just to feel normal. Don't you worry, it's changing you from who you really are. Said no one ever to someone with diabetes who takes insulin, but said on an ongoing basis to people like me and some of you. So let's just deal with it. What about medicine? This is one of the bigger questions I get. Brett, I love Jesus. What about medicine? Let me just pause for 1 sec. It was 2 summers ago, so about 2.5 years ago, that I actually got diagnosed with Lyme disease. Now, some of you know Lyme, some of you don't. It's the tick. I have no idea when I was bitten or not, but is it the root to all of my journey, or is it 2 different journeys? That's the question we have right now for me with my medical team that helped me. But when I went on meds for Lyme disease 2 summers ago, I posted online, I'm not doing well. I'm going on meds. I'd love your prayers. Do you know how many people wrote me and said, Brett, as a Christ follower, you should not take meds? None. Not one. People wrote me and just said, be praying for you, supporting you, hope you get better. When I posted online around 8 years ago and I began to take meds for mental health, do you know how many people wrote me and told me that I shouldn't take meds? Hundreds. I have probably a dozen or 2 who said to me this, Brett, if you take meds, you're not a Christian anymore. Like, let that sink in for a second. People wrote me, some who don't even know me, that they just know I'm a speaker, and they said, if you take meds, you are therefore not a Christ follower. Like, so now our tenets of Christian faith are, we believe in like the Trinity, like the resurrection, these things, and not taking meds. That's now like a primary conversation. And how do you think I feel after this? I am unwell, and I just feel beaten down afterwards. One person said to me once, Brett, meds are always bad. And I said, like, have you ever taken a Tylenol for a headache? And they kind of didn't know what to say. If your worldview is blown up by me saying, do you take Tylenol? Maybe not a great worldview. Someone else said to me, Brett, meds are always good. And I'm like, dude, are you a drug dealer? Like, what? Meds are not always good. So let me say this. I hope none of you have to take meds. My hope and my prayer would be that you don't have to take meds. Before you ever take meds, there's things we should do. And I have a YouTube video on this, things that we can do to try to see if we can get better before we take meds. I do think we quickly over-medicate. But if you need to take meds, and I have a video for that as well, it's okay. And if you're in crisis, if you're not working and are struggling, this might be what you need right now. And I just find it interesting that if you think of my Lyme and my this and how we have differing views for different things. Now, if you do have to take meds, I would encourage you to go to inagene.com. It's about $300. I think if you put my name in Brett, you get 10% off. But this puts a bit of science to medications, because medications is an interesting thing. Medications that made me cry in the fetal position saved some of my best friends' lives. And so this will tell you what meds you should take and shouldn't take. It's quite an interesting system. Now, just to finish off the meds conversation, again, stigma, shame. Again, we have a lot of well people telling unwell people what they should and shouldn't do. And we have a lot of unwell people who feel like, I always think of those whack-a-mole things. Remember the little mole comes up and we hit it with a stick? Like, that's how many of us feel today. And again, our language and what we say and what we speak to others should be building them up, not breaking them down. So what are some things you can look at to see if you're struggling? And I would just say any of these could mean they're struggling. It could also mean nothing. Changes in eating and sleeping patterns. Parents, do you have a teenager? My son, Ben, is 17. He goes to bed around 1:30, and he gets up around 11 o'clock. And that's okay. It's actually a normal, what's called circadian rhythm for students today. Like waking up at 7 or earlier if you have to go for a bus to get to school is not normal for kids. And so could it mean something? It might. For my son, it doesn't. It's very normal. Social isolation. This is an interesting one. How many are withdrawing, or how many are just not doing things? Is it because of pandemic? Is it not? Good questions. Number 3, tell me anyone who's watching has not had that in this past week where you're just like, I'm done. I had 4 cancellations in the last few days for things for this month. And you wish we could be together. You wish we could do things. Not able to function? Yes. This is people who have crossed a line and are not doing okay. Not showering, not eating, not getting groceries. Apathy, just a loss of desire to do things. I read statistics that say our efficiency from working is now down to like 65%. So could it mean something? Does it? Substance abuse is growing. We often call this self-harm. Hurting yourself in some way to get beyond overwhelming feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Feeling guilty, negative comments, and this is the biggest one here, no signs. If we were on a Zoom call today, and I had you all on the board in front of me, I can't go, okay, top row, you 3 struggle, middle, there you struggle. Like, I struggle in here. I struggle in here. It's not something you can look at me and say things. And this is where we need in our families to have rich communication, where we talk, this is where, like, how are you doing? And then you'd say, well, how are you really doing? This is where we need to be open and honest in our lives. I put the little check-in thing in the bottom. If you have younger kids, I really like this. It's an emoji check-in. How are you feeling today? Families, have family dinners ongoing. Have time when you're together. Go for walks, right? This is where we can kind of begin to tease out, is this something that is a struggle, like a mental health illness, or is this just kind of where we sit today? So, playing chess, what is your first step? And this is what a lot of people don't know what to do. And this is where, and I'm a very pragmatic, I'm an Enneagram 8. I want structures for moving forward. So this is what I don't like. I used to spend a lot of time explaining how I got here. I now just tell you, this is what I love. I love body, mind, and soul. It's every church I've ever attended. I grew up Baptist, and our church was meeting the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of our church. I'm at Sanctus now, where I think we're associated gospel. And so, but what is our motto? Like, one of them, meeting the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of our community and our church. Your issue might be physical. So go see a doctor. And I'm going to go into deeper, like what to do with that. But a doctor's a great gatekeeper for that. Your issue might be emotional. Go see a therapist. This is a trained therapist. And we're going to talk about that more. And then here's where language really matters. You're waiting for me to say it might be spiritual. But I don't say that. And here's why. It is unbelievably uncommon that the answer to mental illness is faith. And so here's what I say. God says you will have trouble in this world, you will suffer, but he says, I will be with you in this journey. And so our faith is the foundation from which we journey through these things. And I like body, mind, and soul more of like a Venn diagram. And the words and, not or mean, it is like when someone said to me, try Jesus, and someone else said, try vitamin D. It's not one or the other. It might be and. It might be a doctor, a therapist, and Jesus. And it's probably going to be exercise, sleep, and getting therapy, and your faith, and spiritual disciplines, and all these things. Now, I'm putting something up, and I'm still walking through this. And so, as a speaker, like sometimes you're supposed to have really polished content. Well, let me explain how I got here. I did 10 talks in the last month on mental health. And I've walked through all of these things that could be the reason that we're struggling. And I've had people write me, including pastors and others afterwards, and say, Brett, isn't the answer to everything here just that it's a demonic conversation, so we just need, like releasing prayer and, kind of deliverance ministry? I kind of say this, and I'm going to switch so you can see my hands here. It's kind of like sometimes the church is moving farther away from society. And here's what I kind of mean by that. Like if the issue is, let's go to this one, isolation. Maybe the answer is better community and connection. If the issue is poor diet and lack of sleep, maybe the answer is good diet and better sleep. If the issue is over-parenting, maybe the answer is proper equipping your kids for life. And sometimes I don't understand why the church is we give over-spiritualized answers to things that are not spiritual. And I would say this, I do think there's a spiritual realm, and I do think we do everything here with a biblical worldview, but sometimes our answers are just so simplified, it doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is like we just say, oh, it's demonic, as opposed to it could be a bunch of things. So let me go through body, mind, and soul. This is what I did. I had a physical done. I've had blood work done. I've had lots of blood work. I'm at what's called a functional or integrative kind of clinic. So I have doctors, naturopaths, osteopaths, all these people who work together. Sleep specialist. So let me give you an example. I went to a sleep clinic because I have fragmented sleep. And in the morning I said to the doctor, can you fix me? And he said, no. And I looked down and he goes, look up. And he said, don't look down. This is good. On your list of things it could be, scratch out or tick off, it's not sleep. He says, you don't want a sleep issue. And I'm like, what a great idea. It's kind of walking through, we're complex people. And so what might this be? Friend of mine, youth pastor out in Alberta, he's at a church that would be not an and church, it's an or. And his church, like the last few slides I said to him, this is a spiritual battle only. And they said to him, you will not go to doctors. Interesting. This is what lead pastor said to the youth pastor. 5-6 months in, this guy and I are chatting, and he says, I can't function. I don't know what to do. He's crying like he's beyond, just doesn't know what to do. And I said to him, of all the issues going on, what's your biggest? He said, sleep. And I said, go to a sleep specialist. So he booked one. He went to the sleep specialist in the morning. He said to the doctor, I said to him, ask him, can you fix me? He said, can you fix me? And the doctor said, yeah. He said, you have the worst sleep apnea we've ever seen in our career. They put him on I call them Darth Vader machines, BiPAP, CPAP machines, and he begins to sleep, and he's better. There's common sense missing in this conversation. Medicine, I'm not currently on medicine, and I sort of shouldn't say that. I do have Ativan. Ativan just brings me down a little bit. If I was physically with you speaking right now and my anxiety was heading into a panic attack, I might take something to calm me down. CAT scan, the list, look, there's all kinds of things. And the three big ones I would say are right here. You should exercise daily. This is all of us, right? There's a prevention conversation and kind of a care if you're struggling. Every day, go for a walk. And right now we're all in lockdown. Walk every day. Walk with your family. Go do that. Exercise. I mean, you can do bands and push-ups and bike riding. Sleep more and sleep better and eat better. In my Men Navigating Everything talk, people often say, well, what do you, because I talk about this, and they say, how much better? And I'm like, 5%. Because 5% is a joke. We can all do 5%. So this is the idea of we can begin these like small steps of looking and moving and getting better. Your issue might be physical. Your issue might be because of your unsustainable life. The Bible is filled with physical analogies. And so work on your physical body. 2, work on the mind. And this is, again, where I say, go see someone, a psychotherapist, psychologist, someone trained for this. Now, there's this debate always in the church, and people say, well, you should go to biblical counselors. Now, often, I'm not saying always, but sometimes we're actually going to people who I would call more spiritual formation. These are good people. And I encourage you to have someone who helps you, kind of like a coach who helps you walk and grow in your faith. But what I'm talking about here is someone who can give you perspectives on mental health and anxiety, give you best practices. If I was, again, physically with you, I'd be sitting in a big chair today because my big issue is dizziness. And I'm 6'6". If I'm walking and I'm kind of swaying like a tree, my body begins to panic. But if I sit down, even if I feel dizzy, it's okay. I know I'm sitting and I know I'm okay. And so I think these are really good strategies that we can get. And of course, our faith, right? Our journeys will never change the character and things of God. God is God. We are not God. And so I encourage you to build into your faith, to do daily spiritual disciplines and all of these things. This is why, and this is where for church leadership, we as people talk to two people, medical doctors and quote unquote clergy. Which is why, even if you're struggling, it's good to let a pastor know so we can know how to pray for you or where to hand you off to other people or other things in our community. And I put this up because it's just an important thing to think of that, how do I say this? Well, when I speak in a public school, public business, I don't use body, mind, and soul. I can't say soul from a faith standpoint. I use soul or soul and spirit from this standpoint. Have you ever gone for a walk and you're like, it's good for my soul? I like this. These things are all really important. Well-being, purpose, volunteering, gratitude jars, mindfulness. Mindfulness is just breathing, by the way. This is not meditation. This is not silence and thinking on God. This is just, there's apps like Calm and Headspace that you can get other ones like Dwell and others, which are faith-based. But I think those are more meditating on our faith in God. But mindfulness is really breathing. If you are anxious, you're probably breathing up here as opposed, you can't see it, but I'm touching my belly, as opposed to belly breathing. And these apps just help you do kind of calming things. Actually, one more thing here. The spoons analogy is just I don't have spoons. Let me just take a bunch of stuff out. Think of these are pens instead. And the idea here would be this, that you only have so many in the day. So today I'm recording this. This might take 4 of my spoons. And then I have this left. Now, what else do I have to do today? Do I have to go grocery shopping? Do I have to exercise? And so the idea is if I only had 4 spoons to begin the day, the 4 spoons would go to what I need them to go to. Speaking, things like this for me. So I love body, mind, and soul. And I've just made this bigger. This is what happens when you are doing it live. So faith, how does our faith play a role with this? And I just think this is my favorite thing to look at. Now, Richard Winter wrote in his book, When Life Goes Dark, that there's 5 reasons we suffer or have suffered. Number 1, Genesis 3. We live in a fallen world and we're deeply affected by it. We just learned that a young girl died of a brain aneurysm at my daughter's residence. We live in a fallen world. Random things happen, car accidents, other things. Genesis 3 is kind of like Ecclesiastes says, we live in a world of time and chance sometimes. Number 2, we live with the effects of others' sins. 17 years ago, one of my best friends, a guy named Warren Parker, some of you might have remembered him, was a Southern gospel singer, but he was killed by a drunk driver. And we've lived with that, his family, his wife, friends, forever. We live with our own sinful nature. I said I would be okay to everyone who challenged me to slow down, and I was wrong. And I wish I could go back and do it different. Now, the truth is, I think I had a predisposition probably, and this might have happened to me whether I was teaching or not. Now, I think these are weighted bigger. I think these we need to look at and question, but I would just encourage us not to go, there is a spiritual realm, depending on our denomination. Some churches never talk about this. Some talk about it way too much. But it's in the Bible. There's a spiritual realm. And so there are great books like Neil Anderson's The Bondage. I said Neil Armstrong the other week. Very, very different art, Neil. Anyways, Neil Anderson, his book, The Bondage Breaker, just talks about we have a spiritual realm and there's great things we can say and pray. And that's one. And then there's these verses in the Bible that I don't like. God tests his people to know what's in their hearts. It's good for me to be afflicted so that I might know your decrees. Now, I don't take that God's doing this to me, but I'm just saying this is a great paradigm to view suffering in. And I love Thomas Merton's prayer of abandonment. Let me paraphrase. God, I have no idea what's going on, but I will trust you always. I love that. And Romans 8:28, something I think we should just address because it's something that every person like me who journeys or struggles, we say this to them. And everything's not good. If I today went to Sick Kids Hospital, there would be a parent who just lost a kid. If I just polled everyone in the audience, you would tell me of loss and chaos and other things. Life isn't good. And we use this verse as a promise as opposed to a principle that, God, and one professor once said to me, Brett, the truth is this verse is actually the nuance is actually working along with for the good. Look in the Bible. John the Baptist was beheaded. The disciples, other than one, were murdered and martyred. Jesus was murdered. And Job might have come back, but Job's family died. My point's just, is God's kingdom moving towards its end in Revelation? Yes. Is it good? Yes. Is life going to be good every day? No. God's ultimate good and our daily feeling good are not the same. But can you and working with God bring out whatever's been bad in your life for good? Yes. This is to me what I now am able to do with mental health. But 1/3 of people who struggle with severe mental illness walk away from the church forever. 1/3 say they just meet Jesus in the clouds, like it's just they feel him and it's great. And then 1/3 are like me, kind of in the middle. We struggle and we don't know, and that's kind of many of us in the middle. And I just say it's good to work at bringing out whatever suffering you've had for the good. What did I need? And so I'm going to challenge you to not ever say these things again to people. We've all done it. We've all done it. But I want to explain why. Like, everything happens for a reason. I don't actually think it's biblical. I think it's more Islamic than Christianity. It's actually more determinism. Here, let's just walk through it. You walk up to someone or you sit down on a couch and you say, everything happens for a reason. They've just lost a child. Someone just died of cancer. They're struggling with mental illness. And you say, everything happens for a reason. They're like, what reason? And your answer is, I don't know. And then you walk away. And then they sit. And in all of their unwellness and all their struggles, they have to try to figure out what is the reason for this. Number 2, God must have something amazing planned. Maybe. But maybe don't tell them in their darkest day God's doing this to them. Are you still reading your Bible? That one and the one in the top right, is there still sin in your life? We're really blaming people. If you stop reading your Bible, that's why this has happened to you. If there's sin in your life, that's why Jesus is doing this to you. Like, this is really weird theology. I have friends who've had family die of cancer in Toronto, and their churches have said to them, it's because you didn't read your Bible and pray enough. That's why they died. And we wonder why people just walk away from church. Some people walk away from church to protect their faith. Like, this is where we're sitting with some places today that are just not safe for those of us who journey with this. We're not going to do all of them. God won't give you more than you can handle. It's not in the Bible. God won't tempt you more than you can handle. But this idea, God won't give you more than you can handle. If you need any help, let me know. Here's what I'm saying here. Don't say if you want to go for coffee or a burger or if you want a meal. Just say to them, I want to bring you a lasagna. Let me know what works for you. And mental health is what's considered a non-casserole illness. Think through that for a sec. 2 summers ago, I fell off my bike. I hit mud. My bike went down. I literally broke 8 bones in my arm, my wrist, everything. People right away offered me meals when I struggled and I was at home for a year with mental health. No. Isn't it interesting? So if you want to, but my point is, don't say to them, tell me when. I just say, like, I'm bringing you a meal. I'm going to bring you a Starbucks. And don't say you'll be okay. We don't know this. We're not guaranteed that we'll be okay. I mean, there is a lot, like, there are things that people don't come back from. And, like, there are people who die. I've lost loved ones to cancer and aneurysms. One of my board members died at 41 of a heart attack. I just say, don't say things that aren't true. Here's what you can say, though. Say, how are you today? And I can answer today. Say, I'm praying for you. And then I'm going to say to you, and actually do it. Don't just make this like, we'll do lunch. Like, put it in your Bible. Put it in an app or something. Say, I'm sorry you're going through this. Because sometimes there's not an answer to say to people. Say something. say anything, because I know people who just don't talk about these things with me. And there's a list of things. Give a hug would be an asterisk with kind of COVID, but and the bottom one says shawarma and Big Mac. The darkest day of my life, someone brought me a shawarma. If you're ever in Ajax, go to a place called Pita Delights. They're a Christian family from Nazareth, and so chicken shawarma is my favorite food. And so she brought, one of my board members, his wife, brought me this. And I remember just thinking, there's something about food. You know what I miss most from my Baptist roots? Potluck Wednesdays, where I had a chance to sit and have dinner with people of all ages and stages. I love, I want to get the right verse. I was going to say 2 Corinthians, am I right? 2 Corinthians 1 verse 3, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Some thoughts, and we're going to be done. I'm a Marvel fan, and I was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The other day on Disney, and it says this: the steps you take don't need to be big. They just need to take you in the right direction. I love this. Like, whoever you are listening today, I just want your trajectory to be right, and I want you to start moving forward. I want us to advocate for each other. Sometimes the struggle is those of us who are unwell don't know what we need, and those of you who are trying to help don't know what to give. And this is where we need to meet. But advocate, stand in the gap for people. Maybe this means you take someone a meal. Maybe this means you go with them to a doctor's appointment or a counseling appointment. Right? This is helping and supporting. Dr. Dan Siegel says we need to help children, and I would change children to everyone, understand that the clouds of their emotions can and will roll on by. Love that. And one of the more important slides, if one door isn't working, choose another. If one medication's not working, choose another. If one counselor's not working, choose another. If what you're doing isn't working, choose something different, whatever it might be. I'm 49. If you're more my age, you might remember Bruce Cockburn. Bruce used to sing this line, to kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight. This is a fight, and I encourage you to fight. I see too much apathy and waiting often in the church world, and not the battle of looking and getting better. Some resources and we're done. This is a Canadian website. It's quite good. Government, there's group stuff. There are quizzes to take. There is therapy conversations. It's really, really well done. No faith-based content, but we can add that to our lives. My website's just my name. It's brettullman.com. I'll put that up at the end, but just you can see Brett Ullman spelling at the top left there. If you click on blog, all the things you see on the right are there, and one of them says mental health. If you click that, you will find the last 5 years of postings that I've done on mental health. I'm not a blogger. I'm a curator, so I take the best content that I find and just post it back to you. And all my social media is at the top. I have lots of YouTube videos on mental health. The Walking Daily for 6 months was a really interesting one for me. It's a journey I did last January. And these are the two I talked about before taking meds and after taking meds, just some thoughts on it. Now, you might be saying, Brett, why do you put my top 10 books on habits? Just like we need habits for faith, we know we need time with God, right? We know we need to read and pray and do these things, but sometimes we can't. Like, our habits fail because our systems and our structures. And my favorite book I would encourage you to read is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's great for your faith, but it's also good for mental health. We know we need to exercise and eat better and sleep more. How do we create good habits? Now, I have a 20 video series I'm doing on mental health. I'm actually posting them every day on all my social. And can I encourage you, whenever you hear a speaker, an author, a pastor, a thought leader, like someone who speaks on things that interest you, go to their website and like everything that they have. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those things. Why? When you finish listening to this and you go on social media, what you want is rich content. I want things talking about my faith and my family and my mental health and diet and sleep. And you get that by liking what everyone has. And then no matter what social media you're on, you get great content. This is 20 videos. They're like 2 minutes each on how to have good or better mental health during COVID. These are all my talks I posted on YouTube. Now, the Walking Wounded talk changes ongoing. So this is an older version you can find on YouTube. You can find other ones as well. This is something I got accepted for recently. It's called an Amazon influencer page. I don't like that, but it means that I can post every book on every category I speak on one place. So this is on every YouTube video if you just want a direct link, but if you just put this in, it actually means that, like, and you can't see it, but one of the sections is mental health, and it'll be my favorite books on mental health listed in one place. Now, these are 4 of what I would think my favorite books are. Mental Health in the Church by Stephen Grekvich, the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook, and I have these other books here. The Anxiety and Phobia Workbook is a beast. I'm going to switch back so you can see this. It is a big book, and the 7th edition is now out. But you can see this has been one of my favorite books for me. This is a newer one that I just got, the Anxiety Workbook for Teens. Again, I mean, it's a shorter one. It's really great for teens. And this is The Ripple Effect, Sleep, Eat, Move, Think. And I just think that this is probably some of the best content you will find. And The Ripple Effect is just the foundations from which we live from. I have 4 books here, and I have a 5th, 2 on media, 1 on mental health, Your Story, I did before my breakdown. Wrote that with Adam Clark, who's at People's Church in Toronto, and Dr. Mary Lynn. My Reset book is free. It's a buck on Amazon, but it's free off my website. It's my breakdown put in book form, which sounds weird. Someone just said to me, Brett, I've never heard a Christian's perspective on a breakdown. So I wrote my journey. And then some friends and family wrote theirs. Some of you might know Kerry Newhoff. Kerry wrote his journey of burnout. And then I had other friends and family wrote their journeys of miscarriages and cancer and, loss and suffering, looking towards hope and healing. And this is my newest book. It was a 3-year journey that came out in July. Nothing like releasing a book during a pandemic, but it is not a normal book. This is a 226,000 word handbook on all the things that I speak on. And the first 6 chapters are on parenting. This is what I'll be talking with you when I do my parenting talk in May. But the last 10 chapters, starting with family discipleship and then mental health, which is the largest chapter by far, are conversations that you as a parent, you as a teenager can read. It's not just for parents, even though there's the little parenting tips throughout. It's written for anyone, and you can see all the different content there. You can get this off my website. You can buy this on Amazon. A couple slides and we're done. My counselor once challenged me to put this on a page beside my bed. Great courage with great care. For some of you, you're like me, and there are some days you get up, and I know this is what you think. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I had one of these days yesterday. I did not sleep well, not feeling good. And I get up and I'm like, I need to be a dad, and I need to be a husband, and I need to work, and I need to do these things. So here's what I say. Great courage. Use those spoons analogies, but do what you need to do. Go to school, go to work, do those things that are important, devotions, all these other things. And then great care. What are those things that help you? What are those things that build you back up? Skyping grandma. I said devotions for the first. This is probably better for devotions, and going for a walk or a bike ride or doing exercise or whatever it might be. But I just love that idea. Great courage with great care. The goal today was to take chaos, and I love this idea of just the 3 images, but the goal was to take chaos and put it into something that we can look at moving forward with. Again, the idea today was to be one of those moments that gives you and it sparks something in you to think maybe differently, to look at how we can be better in this conversation of mental health, to move you along that path of hope, healing, redemption, wholeness. The list goes on. Now, we don't have a chance through something like this to ask questions. You're welcome to find me online and ask questions. And I know your church as well. Ask pastors. This is something that we can continue to have discourse and think on it, look at how we can be becoming better. I have one thing I'd encourage you to see, which is a YouTube video, which is 10 ways to make your church a safe space for people with mental health. We want the church to be the hope of the world. You want your church in Orangeville to be the hope of your city, where people can come in. And mental health is one of those things that a lot of us are journeying with. And so think through these conversations. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for having me in to have this conversation. And I look forward to being with you in May for the conversation, parenting, navigating everything. Have a good day. Bye.
When peace yours are all. Whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and has shed his own blood for my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious bar. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
Wow, what a powerful and important morning. We want to thank Brett for sharing his expertise with us in such a caring and authentic way. If you are struggling with mental health issues right now, we encourage you to seek help and always know that our staff is here to pray and support you in any way we can. If you'd like to hear more from Brett, he's actually going to be joining us for a workshop on May 11th, and we encourage you to watch for more details regarding that event. Hey, remember to register this week for the AGM next Sunday night through Compass News if you have not done that yet, but plan on joining us for that important meeting. Most of all, this week remember that God is with you in every moment. The good ones, the challenging ones, we can cast all our cares on him because he cares for us, and his love endures forever. Have a great week. We'll see you here next Sunday at Compass.